Hey BookTube, welcome back. So you just saw Skippy enjoying her treat. And speaking of treats, yesterday was Halloween, so trick-or-treaters. Well, we didn't see a whole lot of them. I think maybe 12 total for the whole night because we had our first snowstorm of the year. Never fails, has to fall. Right on Halloween, you know, the worst kind of weather you can get. That's probably why I don't remember any of the costumes I used to wear as a kid because I don't visually remember seeing them. They were mostly underneath, you know, winter coats and stuff. But anyway, since it's the end of October, I thought I'd go ahead and wrap up Victober. I had a busy month during the month of October. I had Spookathon, which I've already wrapped up. These are the books I read through Spookathon. But for Victober, I hadn't had a chance to kind of wrap everything up yet. So I'm going to go over the challenges that we had and what I read for those challenges. The first challenge was read a book by a Victorian female author, a bonus if the author is new to you. Now I had chosen Agnes Grey for this challenge by Anne Bronte. She isn't a new to me author. I had read The Tenants of Wilde Hall before and I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed this one as well. I also listened to Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell, but again, also not a new to me author. But in terms of the newness, I did read 8 short stories from the Wimborne book of Victorian ghost stories. The first one was by Elizabeth Gaskell, but the remaining 7 of them within the book were all new to me authors. They were all fairly decent. They're not super spooky, more on a gothic feel to them. I still have several books to read, or sorry, several short stories to read within this collection, so I'm going to continue reading that. The next challenge was to reread a Victorian book. I had chosen The Valley of Fear by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I'd read that many, many years ago. I've since read and reread lots of the other short stories and novels within that book right there. But I hadn't read The Valley of Fear in quite some time, so it was kind of vague in my memory. I think I realize now why I didn't really reread it very often. It wasn't all that interesting of a story. It's the only other story to mention Moriarty, but he doesn't really make an appearance. It seems more just a mention again, and that was sort of disappointing. I also read a graphic novel version of The Hound of the Baskervilles. This was not originally part of my TBR. I kind of came across it after my TBR was set, but I really enjoyed it. I really loved the artwork within it, and I thought they did a really great job of captivating the story within it. Next was read a Victorian novel under 250 pages or over 500 pages, and I had chosen the Agnes Grey book for that challenge, and that one was completed as well. Then there was a group read-along, which was to read 2 of the plays of Oscar Wilde, which were The Importance of Being Earnest, which was a reread for me since I had read it way back in high school and really enjoyed it. It's super funny. And the other one was A Woman of No Importance. I had never read that one before, but I also enjoyed that one, and I'm looking forward to reading more of Oscar Wilde's works within here. I have read several of his novels and nonfiction as well, but there's still quite a few reads within this book for me to get to. And then the other challenge was to read a Victorian novel published in the same year as a favorite Victorian classic. For me, I chose Dracula 1897 as my favorite, and a book that was published in that same year, a bit lesser known, was Captain's Courageous by Rudyard Kipling. This was a challenging read, but one I actually enjoyed. I say challenging because in the language in which it's written and the subject matter as well, it's written very phonetically, spelling-wise is very different than what you're expecting, and the language of the sea and the dialect and things made it a real struggle a bit to read. And also, when you're starting to get into the descriptions of the events taking place on board the ship, aren't really explained in a lot of detail, unlike, you know, Herman Melville, who goes into excessive detail. Rudyard Kipling kind of just lets the story flow, pardon the pun, flow, on its own. But it features Harvey Shane, a young, kind of spoiled rich kid of a railroad tycoon. I see Skippy's peeking in the door of my room over there. You can't see her, but it's pretty funny. Anyway, so Harvey Shane is a spoiled rich kid of a railroad tycoon who happens to be washed off the ship that he's sailing on with his parents, and he's picked up by a fishing boat called the We're Here. The We're Here, it's a weird name for a boat. And Troop is the captain, and he's brought on board, and he's a brat from like right away, claiming that, you know, his father will pay, he could pretty much pay for this ship several times over. He'll pay if they, bring him to New York to meet up with his father's ship. The captain's like, we can't. We've just got here. We're ready to fish. This is their, the crew's livelihood. And he doesn't really believe that this kid is the son of a railroad tycoon. But he's very bratty about it, and he's standing there pretty much berating the captain. He's missing like $300 that he had in his pocket, and he immediately claims that someone from the crew must have stolen it. He actually, he claims the captain's a thief, and he says it several times over during this initial conversation, and he's saying, you have to take me back, and he's like, it's May at this moment, and they say that they probably won't make it into, into the New York harbor or whatever till September. So that's like some 5 months that he's going to be on board the ship. And he's like, this is intolerable. This is ridiculous. And he says, like I said, his father can pay for the ship 10 times over if you take me to New York. You're in for me for like 130. It was like 130. That's what it was already. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, the money that was in my pocket. At this point, the captain's had enough, and he actually punches Harvey on the nose, giving him a bloody nose, and tells his son, Dan, who later becomes Harvey's friend on board the ship, he says, take him down below, and cool off. And Harvey starts to think. He starts to think a little bit about his behavior, and he's like, he's not very grateful to this captain and the crew who, saved his life, pulled him out of the sea. And he immediately goes and apologizes. And the captain's like, he knew that, I think that he almost needed that little punch on the nose, a little waking up. He says he's never wrong in his judgments, but he'll become wrong in his judgments by the end of the book when he comes to realize that he wasn't lying about being the son of a rich tycoon. But I love the progression of the character of Harvey, and you really felt like you were on board the ship and kind of immersed in these storms and just the trials of Harvey trying to do a decent day's work, and seeing, what the regular, hardworking individual goes through and not having everything handed to him on a plate. And he really grows as a young man. And by the end of the book, when he reunites with his father sees a definite change in the boy. And I really enjoyed the story. I love the artworks within the book as well. See if I can find you some examples. Some really good detailed drawings of the fishing and the ship, and yeah, I really was surprised that I enjoyed it as much, even though, like I said, it was quite a challenge to read with the way in which it's written. But that pretty much wraps up Victober for me. I finished all the books and a few more that I had on my TBR, and so I had a total of 5 books finished, 2 plays, and 8 short stories, and that was in addition to Spookathon that took place in the middle of it. So overall, I think I had a very successful Victober this year, and I really look forward to doing it again next year. I'll have to maybe plan in advance what I plan on reading. But did you guys participate in Victober, and did you enjoy it? What did you read down? Put it down below and let me know. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.